Hello, this is Angela Anderson. Thanks for joining me for this acrylic painting tutorial. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to paint a simple dogwood blossom, and I'm going to try to make this really easy for beginners so you can follow along with me, and this might be your very first painting. We'll see. Got my husband Mark with me.
Hey everybody.
He's been in chat tonight, so if you've got questions, you can ask those while I'm painting. Let's get started. Already making fun of me?
I didn't do the intro video.
Oh, you didn't?
I pressed the wrong button.
Uh-oh.
Should we do the video?
Sure, go.
Okay.
Whoa.
We're pros. I'm a professional.
So you were too busy making fun of me to do your job.
I was wondering why you were snickering. It got me distracted, and I was looking at you.
I've got a 10 by 10 inch canvas here. I'm going to... haven't done anything with it. I generally don't. If you've got a cheaper canvas that has a lot of texture, you can use some product called gesso and paint it once in this direction, once in this direction, add a little water to help it go on, let it dry in between coats, and then wait 24 hours to let it fully dry before you paint on it. You can use a little bit of sandpaper and help, smooth it out as well. But this one's not too bad, so I'm gonna go ahead and just go straight onto the raw canvas with this one. It is gessoed. When I say raw, I don't mean like completely raw. Anyhow, spend a lot of time talking about that. You're going to want to have either a flat brush or a filbert brush. If you have a filbert, that's probably going to be a little bit better for this project. So filbert is one of these rounded tipped brushes, and these ones are number 6, but they're basically the numbers don't really aren't the same from brand to brand, so it's kind of hard to tell, but they're about a 1/2 inch or so size. And when you're choosing your canvases and your brushes, the way I like to do is just kind of actually try it on here and see how many brush strokes it takes me to get, that whole thing filled up. I could probably go a little bit bigger, like maybe a 1-inch brush, but some of these smaller areas I might have trouble getting down into here. So I'm looking at that too, kind of, just all of the area. I want to be able to get that brush in the largest brush that I'm comfortable using in that space. So anything between, a 1/2 inch to 1 inch brush should be fine for this size canvas, because our petals are quite large on this flower. And then you're going to want a round brush or an angle brush. This one's a 3/8 inch. These are all Princeton brushes. The 6100 series is the green handles, and the Aspen are the black handles. And then these ones are the VelvetTouch in the red. I've also got a brush called a blender that's kind of a scruffy brush that's useful for blending, just like the name says. So if you've got one of those, grab it, but just use whatever brushes you have. I don't want you to feel like you have to have the same exact ones that I'm using, but I'll be pulling those out and mentioning them again as I use them. Let's go over colors. I've got I'll have carbon black here for the background, but I haven't put it out yet. So we're going to do carbon black around our flower for our large flower series. This is probably I don't even know how many we've done in that series. Now, probably at least 20 or more. So carbon black for the background, burnt umber, yellow oxide, cadmium yellow light, phthalo green yellow shade, ultramarine blue, quinacridone magenta, cadmium red medium. And this one is a pre-mixed color called Naphthol Pink. Just grab any pink that you've got. That'll just help you out. If you don't have a pink, you can mix one with red and white. Unbleached Titanium and titanium white. And I'm going to also put out a little bit of Satin Glazing Medium. I haven't put it out. Satin Glazing Liquid. If you don't have that, it's fine. You can just use water. And you don't have to use these really expensive heavy body acrylics that I'm using. If you've just got craft acrylics, it'll be fine. Most of these techniques will work just fine with the cheaper acrylics, or even like student acrylics. I recommend my beginner students use like Liquitex Basics, something like that, because they come in a multi-pack, and anyhow, if you're interested in any brushes or paints or anything, I've got links down in the description where you can buy. All right, let's get going here. So I have not painted the background. Sometimes I will paint the background. If I was going to paint the background before I start on this one, I could paint it maybe a very, very light pink or very light yellow or orange. That would probably go because most of the flower is going to be those colors. But I just chose to start like this. The basic shape of the petals are a heart shape on the dogwood. So I'm just going to grab this and just show you. So you're going to have a heart shape, right? And they're kind of an elongated heart shape, but the middle part is kind of cut off. So if you look at that, that's all of these, that's all it is. You kind of find your center and just make sure the point of the hearts are all leading down into that center. And then the middle part's going to have kind of a squished oval. This petal is slightly curved, so instead of going straight out from the center, these two are curving this way and this way a little bit. Okay, so not too difficult to draw, but I've gone ahead and done it ahead of time just to save us that step. All right.
And the traceable is going to be on Patreon.
Yes, there's a traceable on Patreon, yeah, for the $5 tier. And that includes all traceables, so it's unlimited downloads. If you sign up and cancel, you get unlimited downloads for a whole month. So
nice.
you know, as many as you want to download.
And
there's over 1,000 probably, so, or close to 1,000. Maybe not that many because we started in 2017.
There's
but
more than
several
10.
hundred.
More than 10.
More than 10.
Less than 1 million.
Exactly.
Okay.
Good. I like that.
It's worth $5.
Right. Yes. Yes.
All
All right. So I'm using a 6 Filbert brush here. I'm going to go ahead and use the Aspen because it's a little firmer than the 6100 here series. And I just want to get that paint down on the canvas. So I'm going to start with some just regular water in a spray bottle. This is a fine mist spray bottle, so it's not putting huge droplets of water on my canvas. I also use it to spray down my paints as I work. And that opens up the pores of my canvas and helps it get ready to accept paint. So let's go ahead and start with a light color. So I want to kind of work light to dark on this one. Sometimes I'll work the opposite. Most of the time I'm working dark to light, but this one has some areas in the middle here that we have to blend the red into. So I'm going to go ahead and do those first. And I think I'm going to start with kind of a bluish color because most of this is kind of in shadow. There's a little area right in here that's getting sunlight, but most of the rest of this is all in shadow. So I'm going to go with a blue added to my white. And this Unbleached Titanium is yellow oxide and burnt sienna with a little tiny touch of black. It's all pre-mixed. It's just an off-white color. It's also called buff titanium sometimes. But it'll just give us a nice kind of neutral white. I added some regular white to this, and then I added just a little touch of that ultramarine blue. Not too much. I don't want it to go super dark. I want it to stay light. So, you know, test it against your canvas, and if it looks like it's sort of slightly blending in, that's about the right tone. If it looks really blue on the canvas, especially on this white, then you know you've added too much blue. Just kind of add. And if you have added too much blue, just grab a little bit, kind of wipe out your brush and grab a little bit of white and just mix what's in your brush. Don't try to mix it into whatever you've got because that blue will, it's easier to mix that way. I don't know. Like just that white, trying to add white to a big pile of dark color, you're going to end up using all of your white just to mix with the first color, you know. So, all right, so I'm pulling up and I'm just kind of leaving those edges kind of light, loose, like just kind of brushing up so that I'm not getting a hard line here. So just want to kind of brush out from the center out here with this light blue. And all those areas where I'm seeing that white. There's a little bit at the tip too. I'm not as concerned with the tip areas, but I'll go ahead and put those in too while we're doing this. Okay, that looks good. I'm going to clean that out. Again, just want to make sure we don't have any hard edges or any thick pieces of paint. So if you've got any like real obvious ridges, just go ahead and kind of try to smooth those out. And always go in the direction of the flower petal from point to edge this way and out like a spoke, so that any streaks that you create will look like it's part of the flower. It's just easier. Okay, so now I'm going to grab my pink and add some white to it. And again, if you don't have pink, just use, this pink is white and Naphthol Red Light mixture. So, but if you've got cadmium or any other red, just add a little white to it and you should get a color fairly close to this. I added a little bit extra white. And I'm going to kind of go in the same direction here now and start adding my red. And go ahead and let those streaks happen. I'm using a very light touch and I don't have a ton of paint on my brush. So I'm streaking right through that wet blue color that I've already put on. Now, if my blue color is starting to get sticky, you may want to wait and just let it dry completely, but mine's still a little bit wet. So I can kind of work it, but again, just keep an eye on the direction that these petals are going. There we go. I'm kind of using the edge of the brush to create the lines along the edge, so find it a little bit easier to do with that. Very light pressure. Just creating little streaks. I'm just going to lightly pressure back and forth here. And if you get like really thick clumps of paint, then just wipe your paintbrush off on your paper towel, because you don't want this to be really clumpy here. We're just trying to get some wispy little reds mixed in here. We're not even going to have to blend this flower too much because it's so streaked already. We can just kind of blend with this technique using this kind of streakiness to our advantage, and it makes it really easy to do a flower. Using that edge of my brush to just do some lines. And again, light pressure. Just, I don't have a lot of paint gummed up on my brush here. I've loaded it and kind of pressed it flat so that I can control how much paint is in it. And I'm just going to continue to work my way around here. Again, I want the edges here to be clean, but we will be going in with black later, so if I make a mistake, don't worry about it. I can just clean it up with the black later. Welcome everybody. I'm going to say hi to everybody. Glad you're with us tonight.
Oh, glad to be here.
Yeah, you too, Mark. My co-host.
Well, technical support.
Exactly.
And I'm mediocre at that.
You've got two jobs. Start and finish.
And I can do both of them most of the time. Messed up on the start tonight.
That's all right. I forgive you.
That's right.
I don't think we're going to dock your pay.
Thank goodness. 10% less.
I pay you in cookies, so
Oh,
that
you
just
did.
means you get one less cookie.
Oh, man. It's not fair.
Funny. Good. Okay, so just working my way around here. And you notice like on the edges here, I'm not going straight in. So like, you know, here I'm not going straight in. I'm gonna kind of follow the curve of the flower, but I am eventually curving it in towards that center. So follow the edge of the flower until it kind of goes straight. Makes sense? Just like a spoke would, or whatever. Okay. Getting a little bit of water here. My paint was getting a little sticky, and if your paint gets sticky, you might add water either to your brush or your paints. Just keep an eye on that. And I'm going to go back and forth. And I'm not pulling my hand back and forth. I'm just kind of tick-tocking my brush side to side and kind of keeping it in the same place as I move it back and forth this way. I'm just pulling it towards myself and away from myself, or where I'm holding my whole arm. But it's just doing like this little motion here to get that kind of streaky back and forth. Okay. All right, so we've got that. Now we've got a lot of peachy pink going on right now. So we'll want to start adding darker reds. So I'm going to grab the Cadmium Red Medium. And it's too bright red for this flower. So I'm just going to add that magenta to help make it a little bit more pink. And I'm mixing it into that Naphthol Pink that I was just using. That way it's a little bit lighter. It's just got a little bit of that white from that Naphthol Pink mixed in. I'm going to spray my blue that I was using before again so that I keep it wet while I'm doing this next step. And then we'll see how this does, because this may be a little bit too red still. Add a little bit more magenta. Okay.
Okay, one of the people in chat gave a fact about dogwoods, that their flowers always face the sun, or up towards the sun, never
really?
down towards the ground.
Oh, nice.
I didn't know that.
I didn't either. I took this picture last spring. There's a dogwood blossom in front of the pink dogwood in front of the forestry service in town. Made Mark and I were getting.
Oh, now I remember that.
I think we got dinner at the barbecue place, and it kind of went by there on the way back.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mark was standing on the running board of the van, on his tippy toes, stretched as high as he could to try to get a picture.
Yeah, but I didn't use that one. I used the one that was on the ground that I got. Yeah, I couldn't get good enough picture. Okay, that looks good. And then this kind of curves this way. It sort of comes off here. And it's curved up and comes back down here. And then there's a little bit of it right here coming around that red. And again, just kind of letting that brush scrape that paint. This brush kind of makes it easy because it's so stiff. If I had a smoother brush, I might not be able to get as much of this scruffy, texture. And if that's the case, you may have to take a little bit more of your paint out of your brush so that you have a little bit less paint, a little bit less moisture in your paint, so that it'll break up this way on the canvas. All right, just keeping on moving through here, and I'm going to go kind of just looking at my picture at where the darkest areas are on my photo. to get some of those areas and try to kind of go over in the same general direction as I did before so that I'm getting kind of the same brush strokes there. I'm going to get some of that blue. I'm going to mix that with this red that I'm using. So I have a new color here that's going to blend in those two. So this has got a little bit of that bluish tone from the white. I'll use it to transition between that bright red that I'm using and all right, looks good. Use a little bit of this bluish color here. You can see that it's just a little bit more of that maroon tone. That first pink that I used had a lot of orange in it. The red is kind of an orange leaning. This one's got that more magenta in it, so it's got more of a purple leaning color. Okay. And then get more of that red and going back in here. It's just going to be a matter of layering. That's what I think when people start out with acrylics, they don't realize how much layering goes in to get the depth in a painting. You really have to just take your time and go one color at a time until it looks good, and keep layering it until you like what it looks like. So if you do your first couple layers and it doesn't look good yet, just keep on working at it until it does. That's completely normal. And a lot of times you'll get to the halfway mark or even the quarter mark and it'll start to look worse. Call it the ugly stage. But you have to get that ugly, you just have to get the ugly down and then work your way back towards where you want to be. Just no other way than to just work through it. Keep on going. Don't give up. It's a good life lesson, right?
Painting parallels life in a lot of ways.
Yes, it does. Don't give up when things get ugly. All right. Going in for a second layer. Now these two petals, especially like this half and this whole petal, are a little bit lighter. There's a really dark shadow on here. I don't think I'm going to try to get that in there, but I might do a little bit of a shadow right here, but I don't think I'm going to try to do the whole shadow the way this one is. It wouldn't have done it if the sun wasn't so bright in the sky that day, so I'm not really worried about getting that shadow in there exactly the way it is in the photo. But yeah, we're making pretty good progress here now. So we've got to kind of work on a little bit of our transitions, but I think we're pretty close. So I'm going to switch to a softer brush now. And if you don't have it, that's fine. I'm just doing it because I have it, but use what you've got. All right, I've got a little bit of white here I'm going to add now. So I'm adding that white to that blue that I had already added. And I'm going to go in here and kind of clean up this top edge. Add a little bit of that white, and there's like a little white nubbin that's coming off there. It's going to be hard to see until we put the black in, but I'm going to paint over it. And then I'm going to wipe my brush out. So I put that white down, and I want to blend it, so I've just taken off most of the color out of my brush. I'm just going to pull that white down into the paint where I want it to go. Wipe it out. Pull it down. Okay, that looks good. We're going to just leave it. I'm going to add a few streaks through. I'm going to just, this is called dry brushing, where I get a little bit of paint on my brush, and I'm just going to drag it and let the texture of the canvas. This time I am pulling down. Before I was kind of staying and doing this. This time I'm pulling down through to try to get it all the way down over that red and into the white area. You can see it'll just kind of softly blend over. But I want to make sure I don't have too much paint on my brush when I do it. So wipe most of the paint out. I'm going to start with my whitest area and I'm going to go over. I want the paint underneath here to be dry for this. So make sure that that canvas, that first layer that we just did, is dry. I'm just going to back and forth. If I want it to be really covered, I can get a little bit more paint on my brush so that it covers a little bit better. Okay. And then like right here, there's a little bit darker area, so I'm going to get a little bit of that burnt umber with my blue. Maybe a little bit of that pink. I'm just going to fill that area in right there where it's darker. And then I'm going to use it up here too, where that white nubbin kind of comes up and around. Just a little bit of a transition. Got a thunderstorm coming through here. There we go. I think we're going to be sleeping with the puppy tonight. Mark said he thought he was going to die earlier. The puppy did, not him.
Yeah.
Like
Earlier this morning, I'm working from home today, and I'm working in the studio, and Fitzy was laying in his bed here in the studio, and then there was just a
really
big
loud
thunder boom.
Yeah.
And man, instantly he was over trying to get in my lap under the desk.
Yeah.
Just like, oh my gosh,
Dad, save me.
We're all gonna die. I know it. I know it this time. It's gonna happen.
Yeah, we had a here. We'll talk about this. We'll talk about our fun weekend that we had. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm sometimes okay.
You weren't solely to blame. You had a group of people with you that were doing the same thing.
That's
you were
true.
just
I'm
leading
the
the
last
pack.
one, but I was the last one to figure out that it was a problem. So so we went. We're looking into moving to closer to my son Nathan.
Well, we're
and
looking.
Spencer is also living up there, so
We're
our
looking
two
for a retirement place.
yeah, a retirement place. Yes, exactly. And we were going to these open houses, and there was a bunch of open houses in these different neighborhoods that we were looking at. So we'd probably gone to what, 4?
We had gone
open
to
houses,
3
easily 3
by
or 4,
that time. Yeah.
by that time. And
It was getting close to this one closing.
right, so we were trying to rush and get there before it closed, and it was like there was 5 of us, so that was a big group of us that was all together. My sons and Mark and I, and daughter-in-law. Anyhow, so we pulled up to a house that had the real estate sign in the front yard, and there had been an open house sign out by the road, so we were like, okay, we're in the right place. And I got out, and the rest of them were kind of behind me. Spencer was with me right at the door, and
There's a truck in the garage doors open, the same setup we saw at the other open houses.
Right, exactly. And so I knock and let myself in, and greeted by 2 barking dogs. And I'm like, huh, that's weird. And Spencer immediately goes, Mom, shut the door. And I was like, well, I just want to see where. So I go walking into the house. He's like gone. He's like, I'm out. So he immediately realized,
Something's amiss.
something's amiss. For some reason, my brain did not catch up to that fact. I'm just like, oh, that's weird. And just walked right into this house. And finally, and I'm yelling, hello, and as I'm lucky I didn't get bit by those dogs because they were not
Correct.
happy about me being
No,
there.
they were making a lot of noise.
They were making a lot of noise and being very aggressive.
Nathan, Maggie, and I stopped because we had Noah, and we're like, well, we're not bringing Noah in there because of the dogs.
Because of the dogs, right. And then the little teenage boy, he couldn't have been more than 13, 14, comes out and was like, and I said, is this where the open house is? And he's like, no. And I was like, and that was my first clue. That was my clue. That, oh my God, I just walked into this poor child's house who's obviously home by himself because there's no adults around. Oh my God. I was so mortified. I felt so bad. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And I turned and booked it out. Like I was gone.
And then, got in the car.
And then I hear this click behind me. Lock the door finally. Yeah. Poor guy.
I'm sure his parents told
It
him.
was on a Ring camera. There was a Ring camera right there. As I was walking up, I was like, should I ring the doorbell? And I was like, no, because it's an open house. So they'll just be inside. I kind of did the perfunctory knock, knock, knock and walked in. And it was unlocked, so I didn't, oh my God. Yeah, so I could have gotten
sure
shot. Who knows? It's Arkansas.
They got a talking to about locking the door when nobody's home.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, I'm sure they're going to have a talking to him. All right, so I've mixed a dark green here. I've got the Phthalo green, Ultramarine blue, and burnt umber. The Ultramarine blue and burnt umber make black, basically, together. They make a dark gray. So I've just added that. So if you didn't have the other colors, you could just add black to your green. That'd be fine. I'm just kind of darkening up the center here.
And you're using your blender.
Right. And I don't know if I mentioned while I was telling my story what I was doing with the gray, but I was adding that dark gray that I had mixed before to the corners here. So just a little bit of dark gray and unbleached titanium and I think a tiny bit of blue.
So the good news is that we did find the correct house that was having an open house.
Right.
And did get to see it.
We did get to see it. Yes. And the realtors that were there were the ones that were selling the other house. So I got to tell her, I'm sorry. So sorry that we walked into the other house. They looked as mortified as I was. They were like, oh my God, you did not do that. And I was like, yes, I did.
Well, to our defense, they're the same signs.
Right.
And on one corner, there were two signs, one pointing one way, one pointing the other way.
Right.
And there was no indication on what the open house was.
Which one was the open house? Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, true.
So the moral story is that we're not moving into that neighborhood. Ever.
And if you're watching and I walked into your house, I
sorry.
profusely apologize. Oh my gosh. My brain sometimes takes a while to catch up to the problem. Yep. All right, so getting some magenta here, adding some white to it. I'm just kind of cleaning up these edges here. Notice that gray where I added it. And I've got a number 2 now, so I can get a little bit more, detail here. Be a little bit more careful with where I'm placing it and blend it in. So I need to kind of go between this gray and the red. I'm going to get just plain white to do that and kind of just pull out with that from the gray edges. Try to soften that off. Got a lot of red still in my brush. I'm going to get a little bit more white there. This is a 2 round that is from the Aspen. I like it because it's got a little bit of firmness. It really like pushes this heavy body acrylic around really well for me. Okay. I know Fitzy's gonna go over to Daddy's now again. Get some comfort. So there we go. You can see I'm tapping now with that gray around that white, and it's gonna help blend it out a little bit. Gonna get some of that light pink. Get some of my red.
People are sharing similar stories in their chat.
Oh, really? Have they done that too? Okay.
Well,
not the
no.
only one. Or they've had it happen to them.
Yeah, one person had a woman walk into their house, and she wasn't even looking for an open house.
Oh no. Oh my goodness.
Zone 11 got into a car once, wondered who the lady in the passenger seat was. Got into the
I've
wrong
done
car.
that. I have done that too. I opened up the car door of a gentleman who was sitting waiting for I don't know who in the post office parking lot, and it was the exact same car that I just bought, but it wasn't mine. Yeah. Just opened up his driver's side door like I was getting in. He looked at me and I was like, sorry, wrong car. And I'm like, I'm right there. I'm that one. Right next to you. Sorry. Yeah. Guess it's a thing for me. I didn't know that.
So,
Hopefully won't
public service notice.
gonna be
If you think you're going to be anywhere near Angela, lock
Yeah.
the doors. Just, there you go.
probably for your not that I'm gonna hurt anybody. I'm not like up to no good or anything, but you never know people anymore. I mean, I could have gotten shot. Who knows? You know,
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah,
Arkansas.
I mean,
like
that is a real thing.
That is. Our neighbor said that their friend, when our kids were ding dong ditching, he said one of his best friends got shot ding dong ditching when they were teenagers because rang the wrong doorbell. Oh well. All right, going through here with red, just streaking, adding some extra detail. What?
Said congratulations to someone who wasn't pregnant.
Oh gosh. Oh, that's the worst. I've done that. I did that when I was pregnant with Nathan. That's the last time I did it. First and last time I did it. Yep. I was working. The worst thing was I was working and we had to stay there and work together because she was ordering something special. So not only did I have to take her order, but then I had to give it. She had to come back and get it. So I had to see her I had to stay there with her for like 10 minutes after I had done that. And then she came back and got it again. And the bad thing was I apologized both times. And she was like, it's fine. Like, stop talking about it. Oh, all right. Getting some white with my Naphthol Pink now. So I'm going to go back in here, kind of on my sunny side here, and add some of the more orangey pink to some of these areas. And I'm, again, just using this brush so I can get kind of some more strategic streaks going on. And I want them to be soft. So don't have a ton of paint on my brush. Yeah. Let me get some white. Gonna wipe that out. I'm realizing that this one is a little trickier than I might like for a beginner, just because there is some finessing right here around this little nubbin area here. So might take you a bit. You might have to blend it out a couple of times to get it kind of where you want it to be. You can use your finger to blend it out if you need to. kind of a bright white air right there. There's a bright white kind of right here. And then right here where it kind of comes down in front. Get a little bit of that Naphthol Pink and blend that out a little bit again. Anytime you put too much down or you don't like it, you can always go back in. The nice thing with acrylics is you can just do as many layers as you need to until you get it the way you want it to look. So again, it may take a little bit of finessing. Just keep an eye on the curves here. So make sure that these curves are doing this long curve there and there. Okay, I'm going to bring this color down into the center a little bit more. Bring some of that red down as well, all the way down to where that green starts. And then I'm going to get some yellow and add it to my green. So I have a little bit of that greenish color there, and add a little bit of white because yellow needs a little bit of white. It's not very opaque, so the white will help it cover other colors. I'm going to wipe off most of it out of my brush, and I just want to add a little bit of that yellow right around that green there. So if any of that shows, it'll just look like it's kind of setting in there. Okay. And then get some more white. And I'm going to do probably 3 different greens here. So I've got the base green, but most of these greens on top are very light. So I'm going to start with adding yellow to that base color and make kind of a mid-green color, medium green and medium light green. And I'm going to draw out these little nubs, these little circles. So there's one there, and they're pretty close together. There's one here. I'm going outside this dark color. So if you're tracing this, you may want to paint all of the red without the center color at all, and then transfer on just this center part, and then paint in your dark green just in the center area instead of kind of guessing the way I did. But you can see when I do this, I want to leave just a little sliver of that dark green in between. Okay, so I'm going to do my next one. I'm going to leave a little bit of that dark green in between. And there's a big one here.
Got a question about the green.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody would like to know, how light is the medium light green?
It's pretty light. It's probably in this range right here. Maybe a little bit darker. If I hold it over there, wherever it disappears, that is that one. So it's kind of like that kind of mid-range, somewhere in here. And then we're going to do our lighter values towards this side. So leave ourselves room to go brighter, because it's very bright at the tip. It's almost white. And I probably need a little bit more yellow in my green here. I'm noticing it's pretty yellow, but that'll be kind of the next color that I do, so I'll just stick to this color for now. So there's one here that's over the edge, another one here that's over the edge, and then I want to kind of fill in those gaps with a little bit of it, so it's not a perfect circle, kind of filling in with a little bit elongated. Once I kind of get my next circle on there and I know where I've got space, I'm gonna kind of fill it in a little bit like that. Another big one right here. Okay, there we go. Then let's clean that out. And then our next lightest color, I'm going to use a little bit more yellow with the same color and add a little bit more white. A little bit more white, a little bit more yellow. So I want to go a little bit lighter. And now I'm going to go in and just kind of start creating a circle around that center part and leave a little bit of that darker green going towards the bottom. So just a little bit inside where I just did. And you may need to let it dry if it's not dry all the way, or if it's not sticking all the way. Work that out. And this time I'm just going to go white. I might grab just a tiny bit of that yellow that I just had. Mostly white. Okay, and now I'm going to just do a little loop on these. And there we go. Okay. We'll let that dry, and then we might want to glaze it a little bit once we're done. All right, let's paint it in our background while we're waiting for that. This is always the most exciting part. People
The most tense part.
get stressed out by this. I actually find it the most rewarding. It's pretty zen too, just to be able to. So if you've got an angle brush that can get down in there, you might use that. If you don't, you can use a flat brush or whatever. You can get a smaller round brush to get down into the areas there. I do it this way just because I don't like to have the black in the background or have to paint around the black. I just find it easier. But if you prefer, painting on top of the black, you can do that. It's not going to hurt anything. But this is nice because it really kind of, your colors will start to pop and you'll actually get to see sort of where your values are and if you need to adjust anything. It's going on a little bit watery.
And you have cautioned people in the past about using a pre-black canvas.
Right. Yeah, the black gesso is great, but it doesn't. It dries kind of chalky, and so if you use a black paint on top of it, it will, and then don't cover the entire thing. Like, so if I was painting something that had black, or say I did this and I made a little mistake on my red, and I just tried to go in and, clean up like a little area like that. That little streak would show up on my black gesso.
Because they're not the same colors.
Right, they're not going to be the same exact color. So you could use black gesso, I guess, if you wanted to clean it up that way. But a lot of times, this one actually wouldn't be one that I would have as much of an issue with using black gesso, because you'd probably wouldn't be doing anything blended into the black. If you're blending anything in, or you're like the one that comes to mind is the elephant that I did, or the series that I did with the black and white animal baby with mamas, and there was a lot of black, gray. They were black and white paintings, so there was a lot of light gray that blended all the way into dark gray or black. And in that case, you know, that black background, wherever it was blended into, it wouldn't look the same if it was blended straight into black gesso. So it would show where that line was. Yeah. So if you're new to painting with acrylics, I do have, along with the traceable tier available, it's called a Acrylic Basics for Beginners series, and I think it's 7 courses. I really need to get my spiel down. I think it's 7 videos, but
Your sales pitch.
basically it goes over all of the information that you should need to know to get started with acrylics. So it talks about brushes, it talks about color mixing, acrylic paints and different kinds, and how to manipulate each one, how to load the brush properly, how to manage how much water to add to your paint, when to add water, when not to add water, things like composition and design. So I show you know, all kinds of different techniques also. So, you know, anything from blending, we will go into a lot about blending, different ways to blend, different techniques like dry brushing and splattering, and just different how to do each one with confidence. And they all have homework assignments, so you can do them at your leisure if you want to, or don't. But you know, if you're wanting to, it's kind of like music scales. You know, there's little brushstroke practice sheets, so you can use your different brushes to learn how to manipulate your brushes. And the more you do those kind of practices and learn at home when it doesn't matter, the more confident you'll be when you sit down to do a tutorial. So that's what all of those are designed to do, is just to kind of help you build muscle memory and confidence in different techniques of acrylic painting.
Oh, got a question about black. Why choose Mars black versus carbon black?
They're basically the same. Carbon black is a little bit deeper black, I think, so I like it better, but they're pretty close to the same tone, as far as like some blacks are a little bit more blue than others, or a little bit more brown than others. Like bone black is very brown. Ivory black is transparent-ish, so it's not great for, you know, if you want an opaque black. So Mars black and carbon black are probably interchangeable for the most part. So this one's carbon black here that I'm using. It's the one that I use most often. Oops, forgot that I had a little nubbin. I don't think I covered it totally. Covered a little bit of it. Yeah, so anyhow, that's all available on my Patreon. So if you go to my website, though, you can sign up for our newsletter, and the newsletter has a free perk. So it shows you one of the bonus videos that are included in that $5 tier. So you can see kind of, there's several bonus videos that are more in-depth than what I'm doing on Tuesday nights anymore. I have some longer videos on YouTube still, but most of the newer ones that I'm doing are a little bit shorter. But also my website has all of my back catalog of paintings, so you can see, you know, basically all of. I'm gonna have to turn this so I can get down in here. I can't see where I'm doing. I was trying not to turn it, but I just can't control the brush without turning it. Well, I try not to do it because Ben, when he does the replay videos, or he does my editor, he it makes it harder on him when I have moved the canvas.
So you're talking to him right now?
Yeah, right. Sorry, Ben. Had to do it. Had to be done. Okay, so, wow, it's starting to really come together, isn't it? So fun getting to see it. And if you want to see the rest of these, the large flower series, there's a playlist on my channel. And also, if you just put in large flower in my website search box, under tutorial, go to the tutorials section, and there's a thankfulart.com is the website name. But it is a great search, and it will help you find. There are just about every flower you can think of we've done. Just almost, I shouldn't say that. There's too many flowers. There's a lot of flowers we have not done, but we've done a lot of flowers over the years. And I have really enjoyed them. That's why this series has gone on so long, and I still try to paint one every couple months because I love doing it so much. And I'm always finding new ones, and I'm like, ooh, that would look good on a big canvas. And these really shine like the way George O'Keeffe did them when you do them on a really huge canvas. I can't do that with my videos here, but I've seen students do these on really large canvases, 24 by 24, 30 by 30, and they are amazing when they're blown up really huge because you just can't miss all the details. If you are doing it on a large canvas, I would suggest using bigger brushes. Obviously, you know, the larger the canvas, the brush needs to increase in size to help manage that. I'll be there forever painting all these little details with the smaller brush. Got a little spit. Must have gotten that earlier. Okay. Got a little black on there. And I'm noticing like over here I want to kind of adjust that corner of that flower a little bit. Might do it with this, we'll see. Let me see if the black can probably just do like that. Okay. Probably brought it in a little bit too much there, but you get the idea. Okay, so let's do that, and then I'm going to go back into this one here, and I'm going to get my burnt umber and yellow oxide, a little bit of glaze. This is where my glaze comes in. You can use water instead, but glaze will help it stick a little bit better. I'm just going to kind of go around here and go in between some of these and add just a little bit of brown. And you don't have to blend this out too much. It should just kind of tint what's already there. Just a little transparent layer of detail. And I'm going to get some of that dark green if I can get any. And just come back in here and kind of go in between and clean up a little bit. Kind of where they go down in. Just add a little bit of that dark green. Give it depth, okay? And then let me go ahead and get a little bit more of the white. Just do one more little dab of white on some of these. Nice. All right, so now that that black is on there, I'm seeing that I could probably go a little deeper with my red, especially like over here on my sort of shadow side. So I think I'll do that once this black dries. Let me go ahead and do the sides while we're waiting for the front to dry, because it'll just save me from having to do it later. I'm going to get a different brush that's a little bit wider. And since I've already got the paint on my out, I don't want to waste it. Quickly do that, and hopefully my front part of the canvas will dry really good for me, because I don't want to do this next step or be close to that black, because it'll probably pull some of that color into my flower if I try to paint any details or paint the edge of the flower that's touching the black, you know, that edge. If I do that right now before that black is dry, it could pull that black into my paint like I was trying to blend with it or something, which I'm not trying to do. So hopefully this is one, though, that you'll try. This is definitely one of the easier of the large flower series. I have several that are kind of more beginner friendly than others. The poppy was one of the very first ones that I started, the red poppy, and it is probably one of the most beginner friendly ones besides this one. There's also a large daisy that I did, one of the very first videos that I did on YouTube. My videos have gotten a little more difficult the longer that I've painted on YouTube, and that's not on purpose. I just tend to like to do the more complicated paintings anymore, and I've gotten away from painting in person, so I'm not forced to simplify them as much as I used to when I had in-person classes. So, but I do have a lot of beginner lessons on my channel from several years of painting on here. So we don't just do the more difficult stuff. And the more advanced things I've saved anymore, I just do those on Patreon. So the ones that are on Tuesday nights are a little bit more basic, but still what I would consider maybe kind of a intermediate type tier paintings at times. Not always the easiest ones. If a painting is for beginners, I usually title it easy or beginner in the title. So if you're searching on my website for paintings that are appropriate for beginners, I also have a playlist here on YouTube that is full of beginner tutorials. And there are lots of them. I shouldn't say like I don't do them, but I don't do them as often anymore. Now that we're only doing 4 videos a month on YouTube, just on Tuesday nights, I end up doing more. It's harder to manage, you know, the paintings I do want to do versus the paintings that are a little bit easier to do. All right, I don't know what I'm saying. Not explaining myself very well there. All right, I think that is mostly dry. Yeah. It dries a little shiny, the carbon black does, so watch out for that. All right, so I'm going to use some of that cadmium red and magenta here. I'm just going to go along the edge of the petal. And if we want it a little bit darker, like we could always add a tiny bit of black to the magenta. I tend to not like to do that if I can help it, because it can kind of dull the color too. So this one, it's not needing to be super dark, so I think that these colors should do okay on their own. I think they just need another layer. Adding some little lines here, trying to darken up some of the edges. And this is where too, like you might see that, like if you went over your black too much in an area, you can use your color to kind of help clean up your edge a little bit too. I'm using the Naphthol Pink here because it's got some white in it. So I can use it to kind of help adjust that edge there where it was looking a little funky. And then there's like a little bit of a, I'm going to get some white here. There's a little bit of a white highlight that's coming down on this one. So I'm going to go right down there. A little bit more white just from the very bright tip down. Same thing here. Kind of adjust the shape a little bit, getting some more of that brighter white here. Right there. Bring it up here. Kind of coming up over. I think we're pretty close. I'm going to get a little bit of this blue and some white, a little bit of burnt umber. Make kind of that gray that I was using for this gray here. I'm going to kind of just dab in. I have a little bit of red here too, which is fine. I'm going to get a little glaze, kind of equal parts burnt umber and black and blue here, and I want to kind of mark out the separation between some of these petals here if I need to. Okay, I think we're pretty good. I go a little bit brighter here, and what I can do is, now that I've got my color on and it's dry, I can just glaze some of the darker reds. So I might take my magenta and my glaze. This will add a lot of pink tones in. And wipe that out. And the glaze just keeps that paint from being too opaque. And if you use a color that's already transparent, like this Quinacridone Magenta, it glazes beautifully, and it just adds a little depth of color without overpowering. Just a little bit of that glaze goes a long way. It's thinning it out so that it's even more transparent. You're not noticing it too much, but it is there, and when it dries, it'll just add that little bit of a pink glow in some places here on our flower. Again, make sure you're doing this on a dry canvas. You don't want to be doing this on a wet canvas. Okay. You could do this with blue, like if you wanted to add blue in your shadows of your flower. You could do this with a kind of a little bit of yellow if you wanted to brighten up certain areas of your flower. Like let's do a little bit of ultramarine blue and just on this side here. Just add a little tiny bit of it. This will be a little bit more dramatic. Taking some of that off because it's a little bit bright. There we go. So I'm going to add a little bit more glaze so it's not so obvious there. There we go. I'm just doing it on my kind of shadow side of my flower here. There we go. Just a little tiny hint of that blue. Maybe a little bit of it right up next to the flower right there. Just using a paper towel or your finger to kind of help blend it out if it goes on too thick. And again, not adding a lot of glaze here, just a tiny bit. Wiping my brush out. Pulling some of that color out for that shadow that's kind of right there. Okay, I think that's good. I'm going to stop there. That was a fast one tonight.
Pretty good.
Just barely over an hour.
So I stopped counting at 31
31 what?
large flowers.
31 large flowers? Wow. Okay, that's way more than I estimated. I thought it was over 20.
I was on page 4.
Wow. So we've done a few, is what you're saying.
We as in you, yes. Yes. And there's one large tank. So it's not very balanced.
Not very balanced. You think, yeah, we need to work on our tank game.
Bring some balance to the universe.
All right, I've got my brushes in my water for now. I'm going to take them straight and wash them out with soap at the sink, just dish soap. But I don't leave them in my water while I'm painting, obviously, but make sure they don't dry out while you're working, so you kind of have to work quickly, keep re-wetting your brushes as you go so that they don't dry out fully on you. I'm going to sign it, I think, down here. I can't remember if I signed the ones. I think some of them I signed right up next to the flower, but I'm just going to sign this one down here. There we go. Done. Not too bad.
Not too bad at all.
Yeah. So, I mean, anytime I get done with the painting in an hour, plus, you're in the beginner range usually. So, this was definitely, I think, a doable beginner lesson. Hope you try it. I think the trickiest part was this little bit right here. But I think if you just kind of remember that blending, put a little paint on and kind of work the edges and let it dry in between layers and mix your two colors. So if you've got some gray and you've got white and you need to blend the two, you can mix the gray and white together, have that middle color, as your transition if you need it. But this kind of blending, the way I did it here, is basically a dry brush blending. It's a way of streaking to blend. This painting in particular makes it really easy because this flower has all these streaks in here. So this is just a really easy technique to master, I think, once you get the hang of it. So hope you try it. Thank you guys for watching. Give it a thumbs up, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out my website and Patreon if you want the traceable for this. I'll be having that up probably by tomorrow. Usually do it from the finished painting and make the traceable for my students to follow along. And thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you next time. Bye.